Hello, what's up YouTube? In this tutorial, I want to show you high-end skin retouching in Photoshop, and this is going to be from a beginner level. And if at all you're a beginner, or if at all you're a photographer and have been doing photography for a while and you don't understand the concept of frequency separation, this is a tutorial for you. So we're going to be doing frequency separation and later on color grading and understanding how to save the image in the shortest time possible. So make it a point that you hit the like button, because I promise and guarantee that you're going to be benefiting so much from this very tutorial. Let's kick in and start, hoping that you have hit the like button first. So usually, let's understand frequency separation. Frequency separation is a skin retouching technique that is going to divide the image into the high frequency and the low frequency layer. So usually in the high frequency layer we have the textures, and in the low frequency layer we have the colors. So when you combine both the colors and the textures, we are going to be ending up with the final image or the same image at the end of it all. So when we divide those layers, we can go ahead and work on the layers differently or individually and perfect those layers at an individual level. So let's first of all understand this and recreate those two layers. So just come to the background layer and make sure it is selected and press Command J or Control J twice and create those two layers. So we're going to name this low frequency and I'm going to name this into high frequency, just like this. So usually we turn this layer off and select the low frequency layer. Then you're going to come right here to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. Remember, you only want to remain with the colors in the low frequency layer. So make sure you first of all turn the radius all the way down. Then you look for an area that has more skin details than the rest of the image. So around this we are fine. Then start moving this radius, because make sure you don't cram this, since different images may be having different levels of details, or they may be taken using different cameras that have different or varying megapixels. So you're just going to start taking this up. So you have to take up the radius up to a point when you're just starting to lose out on the textures or the details in the image. So at around 7, that is when I'm just starting to lose out on the details. So just stop at that point and come and simply press OK. And after doing that, it's going to apply the Gaussian blur onto the overall image, and we are going to end up with only and only the blurred image. So don't get shocked or don't be scared if at all the image looks like this. So just come to the high frequency and now activate it. And when you come and activate it, simply come back to, remember we only want to remain with the textures in the high frequency layer. So just come to image and come down to apply image. So when you come to apply image, you're going to get another window right here. So just come and select low frequency layer. The reason for this is because we want to extract our textures from the low frequency layer, and make sure the channel is RGB, and make sure if at all you have 8 right here, it means that the image you're going to be working on is going to be an 8-bit image. So this is what you have to apply in the settings, because right now I have 16 and I'm going to get into that later on. So if at all you have 8, it means your image is going to be an 8-bit image. So just come and change the blend mode to subtract. Make sure the opacity is at 100%. Preserve transparency and mask are not checked. The scale has to be 2 and the offset 128. So make sure invert is not checked, and you'll have the textures on this gray kind of layer. Then if at all you have a 16-bit image like I have right here, select the low frequency layer, and the blend mode this time has to be add, and make sure the opacity is 100%. Preserve transparency and mask are not checked, and make sure the scale is 2 and the offset 0, and make sure this time around you turn on the invert option, and you'll have the textures on this gray kind of layer. And after that, just come and press OK. So now the image looks more weird. So just come to the blend mode and change it from normal and change it all the way down to linear light, and you'll get back the image the way it was meant to be. So usually we put these two in a group by pressing Ctrl Command and left clicking on both layers and pressing Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard to put them in a group. So you can double click to rename this into frequency separation. So like I said, there shouldn't be a difference between the frequency separation group and the original image. So you can say there's no difference at all. So open up the group by clicking on the drop down icon, and after that just come to the low frequency layer and now select it. Then you're going to come and get what we know as the mixer brush tool. So simply come under the brushes right click and come and select the mixer brush tool. So if at all you are using older versions of Photoshop, you may be finding your mixer brush tool right here. So we want to set it up so that it can blend the transitions within the skin well and better. So for this case, we are just going to come to the settings of the brush and make sure the hardness is at 0%. Make sure it is a clean brush and make sure you select the option which says clean the brush after each and every stroke, meaning this is the option that we want to affect or to use when we are retouching images. The weight we are going to be using is 9%, the load of 75, the mix at 90, and the flow of 100%. Make sure sample all layers is not checked, because when you tick or check this option, it means as you're painting while you have selected the low frequency layer, it means that it's also going to be painting textures in the low frequency layer, which we don't want. So make sure you don't, make sure this option is not ticked or checked. So usually we want to first of all fine tune the transitions within the skin color or skin tones. So usually I turn off, or we turn off the high frequency layer so that you can only look at the colors in real time. And with the mixer brush tool, we're just going to be painting and having a better transition within the skin color or skin tones in this case. So with that turned off, with the high frequency layer turned off, you're going to only be looking at the colors and no textures. And as you're brushing around the image, the more plastic it is going to be looking, the better the results out of the retouching process at the end of it all. So come and select the low frequency layer, and if at all your mixer brush tool is showing this plus icon, make sure that you press the caps lock key, and that is going to remove that and display your mixer brush tool as a circle like this. And if at all you want to play around with different sizes of the mixer brush tool, you can use the open and close brackets on the keyboard to either increase or decrease on the size of the mixer brush tool. So for this case, we're just going to go straight into blending the transitions. So if at all you want to look at the colors in real time, just zoom in slightly. And right now, don't over zoom in, because when you over zoom in, you're not going to be looking at the uneven transitions quite well, but at a slight distance, you can look at the unevenness within the transitions within the skin tone. So you're just going to left click and hold down, and you're going to be moving the mixer brush tool in the direction of an area, or the way an area is shaped. You can see the forehead is moving in this kind of contour kind of format, so you have to move the mixer brush tool in that direction. The reason for this is because we don't want to change or even alter or even distort the original shape of the model's facial structure. So we have to be careful and always move the mixer brush tool in the direction of an area, or the way a specific area that we are working on is shaped. So you can see the forehead is moving in the direction. So make sure you mix colors that are looking alike, and you don't drag color from, for example, the midtones to the highlight area. So make sure you remain within those borders, and where the transition is happening, make sure that you really blend that area so that it can be smooth and even gradual. So I'm just going to increase on the size, and I work on this dark area right here, reduce on the size, and I'm going to work on this mid-tone right there like that. So basically this is how to use the mixer brush tool. So don't mind if at all the image is tending to look plastic as you're working on it with a mixer brush tool. So I'm just going to come and paint through those colors. You can see on the nose area, I'm applying the mixer brush tool and painting the shadow areas alone, the midtones right alone, and also on this highlight on the nose alone. So I'm just going to, remember, I'm playing around with different sizes of the mixer brush tool, and how I'm doing this, I'm just using the shortcut, which is the bracket keys on the keyboard. So the open bracket is going to reduce on the size of the keyboard, and the close bracket is going to increase on the size of your mixer brush tool as you're blending the transitions within the skin tone of your models or the images you're trying to work on. So reduce on the size if at all you want, or you have to work on a slightly smaller area. So I'm just going to come and paint on those tiny small areas just like that. So make sure you blend every single area that has skin, because we don't want to leave an area untouched or unworked on. So let's just come and paint on those areas, and we fine tune the image to look even better, just like that. So just come to the highlight area, and now we are now working on the highlight area in this case, just like that. And you can see the image is looking quite better than before. So in order to check or cross check on the retouching, you can turn on the texture layer and turn this on and off the overall group of the frequency separation, and you can see we have really done a decent job, but we have as well retained the original color or the textures within the skin, meaning we are successfully retouching. So just turn this off and select the low frequency layer, and just come and continue working on your image, just like that. So after that, make sure you also retouch the hands, because they also need retouching, because there is also skin on the hands. So remember, you have to retouch every area that has skin or that contains skin in this case. So I'm just going to come and paint on those areas, and we are trying to create a harmony or harmonize the skin tone transitions as we are working on the image, just like that. So you're just going to come, and in order to zoom in, you can use Control or Command plus on the image if at all you're working on a slightly small area. But when you're using a mixer brush tool, make sure you retouch at a distance, because you don't want to really get distracted when you over zoom into your images. So I'm just going to come and I work on that area right there, and you can see the results are really evident and the image looks better in this case. So you can come and turn on the texture layer and zoom out and look at the area and look for the areas you haven't worked on, in this case, for example, the neck area. And you can turn this off, select the low frequency layer, turn this off, and just come and work on the neck area and also fine tune it. So right now we are done using the mixer brush tool, and I've turned on the texture layer. So that's the before and after, before, after. So right now, the next thing I tend to do, I get the lasso tool right here, and I fine tune the areas I may have missed out when I was using the mixer brush tool. So with the lasso tool selected, make sure this new selection mode is active or selected. The feathering has to be between 20 and 22 pixels, because we want smooth edges when you're trying to select on the skin. And alias is selected, and that is it. And right now, still on the low frequency layer, just come and make a selection on the skin. So you have to keep away from selecting the eyebrows and only select the skin, and keep away from the edges of your image. So come to filter, and you're going to come to blur and come down to Gaussian blur. So when you come to Gaussian blur, remember the radius that we initially had. So you can multiply that radius by 3. So initially we had a radius of 7 pixels. So when you multiply 7 by 3, I'm just going to type in that value, 21. Just going to undo this. So 7 by 3 is 21. I'm just going to type in 21 right there. Or alternatively, you can just start from 7 and start dragging this up to when you feel like you have a very nice texture in your image. So at around still 21, that is a better texture for me. So I'm just going to type in 21. So usually the radius you may have used when you're creating your frequency separation layers, just multiply it by 3 and type in that value, and that is going to save you a lot of time. And just come and press OK. And I'm just going to deselect. You can click away from the selection and it's going to automatically deselect, or you can as well press Ctrl D or Command D on the keyboard, and that is going to help you deselect that selection. So I'm just going to draw shapes, and like I said, you have to keep following the shapes of the model's face. So right click and come to Gaussian blur, and when you feel like it is too much for your liking, you can right click on the selection and come to fade Gaussian blur and simply reduce on the effect of the Gaussian blur on the skin. So I'm just going to leave everything at 100%. And when it comes to the nose area, most people tend to mess up on this very step. So when it comes to the nose area, also apply it independently, just like that. Apply it on this side of the nose, right click and apply the Gaussian blur, and also apply it on this other side of the nose, just like that. Right click and come and apply your Gaussian blur. And usually on the highlight, I don't apply the Gaussian blur on the highlight of the nose. So usually I leave it untampered with. So right now we are done using the lasso tool to fine tune the areas we may have missed out when we're using the mixer brush tool. So This is the before and after. So remember, we want to color grade the image. So initially, in order to color grade, you're going to create a stamp visible layer. So if at all you are using Windows, simply press Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard, and that is going to create a stamp visible layer. Or if at all you're using Mac, press Shift Option Command E on the keyboard, and that is going to create a stamp visible layer. Then after that, you're going to come to Filter, and you're going to come to the camera raw filter. So in the camera raw filter, we're just going to be doing further color grading to the image and have a very rich skin tone of this model. So in this case, I'm just going to come straight to our color mixer tool and come straight to the luminance tool. So in this, I'm just going to go straight into the oranges, and I'm just going to darken the oranges in this case because I want the skin to look a little bit richer. And I'm just going to come back up to the contrast, and I'm just going to add contrast to the image in general. And after that, I'm just going to come down to my split toning. It is just below the color mixer, and I'm just going to add a given color to the highlight. So I just want to add a given green color. So first of all, come to a saturation and just pump that up and look for a color that you want to apply to the image, and simply come to the saturation and knock down the saturation just like that, and that is going to give you a better feel of a color that you want to apply to your image in general. So that's the before and after for the camera raw filter. I'm just going to come and press OK to approve the settings or the adjustments. Then after doing that, I'm just going to go straight into my further color grading. So I'm just going to add contrast within Photoshop, and I'm going to come to my HSL panel to do color grading on the skin tone. So come under the master, and I'm just going to select the reds first of all, and simply turn down the lightness of the reds just like that. And that is going to get me a skin tone that I'm going to really fall in love with. So I'm just going to take it further more down. So that looks okay. I'm just going to come and create a black and white adjustment layer, and with that created, I'm just going to come and change it to multiply, and I'm going to come to the opacity and simply drop down the opacity of that, and that looks okay, but the image looks a little bit warm for my liking. And I'm just going to create one more selective color adjustment layer, and with this I'm just going to come under the blacks, and I'm just going to intensify the blacks just like that, and come and cool down the image just like that by turning down the black slider towards the blue side of the yellows. So the opposite of yellow is going to be blue. So I'm just going to leave it at around there. So after doing that, I'm just going to come and do a little bit of eye whitening. So I'm just going to create another hue and saturation adjustment layer and take down the saturation up to around negative 90 is okay, and press Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard, and that is going to invert the effect. And come under the brushes, right click and get the brush tool, and for the settings, make sure the hardness is at 0, opacity and the flow of 100%, and make sure you have black and white right here. You can reset by clicking on these two small boxes down here, and you can switch in between black and white by using the arrow keys, or you can use X on the keyboard. So make sure white is on top. You can now zoom into the image by using Ctrl+ on the keyboard, and with that done, you can now use the white brush and paint on the black mask to whiten the eyes. Just look at how this is going to transform the overall image. Just look at the eyes are now really getting better and looking a little bit more appealing to the eyes. So I'm just going to use Ctrl Command+ on the keyboard, and I feel like we still have a little bit more of the yellows. I'm just going to come and create one final selective color adjustment layer and go straight into the reds, and with the reds done, just going to come the yellows and simply take out the yellows out of the reds, and also come under the yellows and simply take out the yellow color out of the yellows just like that. And this looks okay right now. So let's look at a quick before and after for everything. This is the before and after, before, after. So after this, you can now come and save the image, and the best way to save, simply come to File and come to Export and come down to Export As. And when you come to Export As, you're going to get another window for you, and these are settings that you have to use if at all you have issues regarding color change or when the color of the photo changes every single time you post it on social media or when you put it on a different device. So make sure your format is JPEG, the quality at 100%. Make sure you change the sample to bicubic sharper because usually we want sharp images at the end of the retouching process. Then under color space, this is where the magic is going to happen or take place. Make sure you check convert to sRGB and also embed the color profile. And what this does, it really embeds the color grading that you put within the image while you're trying to color grade or retouch it within Photoshop. And when that is done, you can now come after the image is done loading the preview, you can press export and look for where you want to save the image and simply save the image. So this is it for this tutorial, and if at all you found this really helpful, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe this channel. If at all you have been watching and you learned something new from this tutorial, Ronnix from Ronnixphotography, thank you for watching. I'll see you in yet more amazing tutorials, and don't forget to keep practicing and also keep creating.